The artistic journey is a long one, and it is easy to stop moving altogether. Perhaps you become stuck in the comparison game, or you simply feel your progress is happening too slowly. Whatever it may be, to withstand the onslaught of the art journey's brutal winter, we require something fundamental: resilience. Welcome to the podcast. My name is Zach, and if discussions like this seem to be your cup of tea, please subscribe. Well, what is resilience? As it applies to artists, I tend to think of resilience as the ability to weather things. The ability to weather tough times, a failed piece, a lack of job opportunities, or a lack of encouragement from your family. It is the ability to continue working when things are difficult, when you lack motivation or inspiration. It is the ability to bounce back from failures. It is perseverance, often through flexibility and an understanding that success can take many forms. Mostly, it is a dedication to being an artist, an unwillingness to abandon the craft, but to be steadfast despite circumstances. Why is this so important for us as artists? Well, artists endure many odd and strange situations and circumstances. Our culture is often unkind to us and lacks a fundamental understanding of what makes us different and how we fit into society as a whole. All people need some level of resilience, certainly, but it seems perhaps to be one of the most fundamental components of any artist that has a long and healthy career, whether that be professional or as a hobbyist. I could spend a lot of time here going over the benefits, but instead I will touch on a few and then try to spend more time on ways we can actually develop or maintain our resilience, as I think that might be the best use of our time. So here are some quick benefits: developing adaptability, navigating creative blocks, overcoming failure, staying motivated, overcoming uncertainty, and sustained long-term commitment. So, how do you develop resilience? This is a complicated subject. In fact, it is something that during the latter years of my teaching career came up as a significant point of concern with the students. Having endured through the pandemic, subjected to quarantine, separation from their peers, a potentially deadly illness, let alone the political components of the ordeal in the United States during the pandemic as a whole, the students, the kids, suffered. It was difficult for myriad reasons, and we became increasingly concerned about their resilience. The thing is, it's much easier to teach math or science than to teach resilience. The latter seems to have some components which require work and a desire by the person who needs to do the learning. For what I can bring to the table, based on my 10 years teaching, my personal experiences, and some research, I have broken what follows into mindset and work. Mindset, of course, is the reframing of things, but the work is just that as well. Purposeful effort put into developing mechanisms for resilience. Let's start with the mindset strategies. First of all, focus on what you can control. We have limited control over our lives as we become more painfully aware the older we become. But the beauty lies in the last part of that statement. We do control some things. You cannot control the things that have happened to you, only how you respond, how long you mourn for things lost, and how much grace you give yourself. Focus on what you can control and work to control it better. Magnus Nilsson, a world-renowned Nordic chef, often talked about control in the kitchen. To paraphrase, he remarked, "If something can be controlled, then we control it absolutely. But if something cannot be controlled, then worrying about it is wasted energy." In our artistic pursuits, we can work to harness what we actually have the power over, and to let the other things wash over us as best we can. Subtle shifts in mindset can make these transitions easier. Now, what does this look like artistically, specifically? Well, what can you control with a piece of work? You can't necessarily control whether the last piece failed or succeeded. You've already moved past that threshold. What you can control is how long you linger upon it, what you do afterwards. You can control what piece you engage in next. You can control how hard you are on yourself about the failure or the success. And I say it that way specifically because sometimes a success is actually harder than a failure. When your last piece failed, the piece that comes after that, well, it's a crapshoot as to what will happen with it. But when a last piece was successful, you can sometimes build up unnecessary stress expecting the next piece to be successful as well. And this is something I do. It's something I do specifically with my oil paintings that I mentioned before. But we can control what we do next. If you had a piece that was really successful and you're terrified to jump into the next one, maybe just focus on some referential work. Focus on something that is lower stress for you. Focus on what you can control in a given situation. Remind yourself that this struggle is part of the process and the journey. This is something we all need to do frequently. The art journey is long and hard, but sometimes we forget or our expectations can get out of control. Try to casually remind yourself that you are making progress, that your time investment is cause for celebration and honorable at its root. This is a weird thing. This is something that maybe most craftspeople or people that are working on honing any skill need to remember, is that the journey is difficult. Things don't come in regular steps of success. It's really this awkward state of plateauing. You grow for a little while and then it feels like you cease growing. As an artist, this might not actually even be true. It might be that your eyes are developing faster than your skills, and so you are now able to see your own failures, your inconsistencies far more easily than you used to. And this looks like from the inside, not the outside, but it looks like from the inside as you look at your work, that your work has stopped expanding, it has stopped growing, and it has stopped improving. So remind yourself that the struggle, these thoughts, these feelings, the things that require resilience, these are just part of the journey. They're part of the process. I know this might be trite. In fact, I'm almost positive it is. We all talk about focusing on the journey more than focusing on the destination. I think that statement is kind of BS at its core, just because there's no statement that's ever going to be 100% true. You have to focus on both, right? You focus on the destination because the destination's important. It's why you stay on the journey. If you're trying to get halfway across the country to your family, obviously the destination, your family, is important. But the journey is drudgery if you only focus on the destination. So you have to learn how to focus on it as well. But it's that split. And that split's going to be different for everyone. It's not 50-50. Maybe it should be, but it's not. For me, it's probably 70% destination, 30% journey. But I still try hard to find ways to enjoy the journey, or even just tolerate the journey. And so this reminding yourself that you are on a journey, that struggles are part of it, is a good thing. And as a last little note here, remember that if you're not encountering any struggles on your artistic journey, then you're probably not growing. It's like if you are weightlifting and it hurts and it hurts and it hurts, and then at some point it just stops hurting, you've stopped growing. You're lifting the quantity that your body can lift easily, and so you're not progressing at all. And for some people that's fine, but for most artists that seems to never be fine. Remember that failure is necessary. This is a hard-learned lesson, but one worth dwelling on. Failure accompanies all successes. In fact, nearly every success is built on a mountain of failures. Failures don't make you a failure, they make you human, and while I have mixed feelings about being lumped in with all the humans, I'll take it over being a failure. We have a visceral aversion to failures, and sometimes as artists, we feel this all the more strongly. It's hard to recover from a piece that goes poorly, and in some capacity, this comes from the fact that that piece is an extension of us. I used to talk about this in my art classes because I would frequently have students finish a piece and they would be like, I hate it. So I ended up building a rule in that was I'm going to paraphrase this. Your artwork is your child. You brought it into existence. The least you can do is show it love. And basically, it's the idea that every piece that we hate because it somehow communicates a weakness of ourselves, a perceived weakness of ourselves. It's an extension of us. It wouldn't exist without our intervention and without our work. And so hating on a piece that you produced is not only unnecessary and inefficient, I would say that it's actually detrimental for you, and it's detrimental for your soul as an artist. So try not to do that. Every good painting I have made was preceded by a dozen bad ones. Every good sketch sits on the shoulder of literally hundreds of terrible ones. I have started to share my old sketchbooks on this channel to this precise end, to show that any skill, even skills as meager as mine are in some places, those skills are hard won, scraped tooth and nail from the jaws of a wild beast. Work on cultivating patience. I believe I have an entire video on this, and so I will link it below. Largely, that video focuses on finding contentment in the moment, contentment with where you are currently. If you want some more information on that, though, check it out in the description, or I'll have a card for it at the end of the podcast. I don't want to belabor this point, but cultivating patience, just working on building more, having a larger, wider repertoire of patience in your life will benefit you tremendously as an artist. Stay connected to your passion, to what drives you. You got into this art thing with purpose. There was something exciting that drew you into art in the first place, so uncover it. Find it again. If you stay adjacent to your passion, stay connected to it, you can keep the fire burning. For me, this is stories. The more I read, the more I listen to the craft of storytelling, the more I want to draw and write. The more things that I watch that have beautiful stories in them, the more I dive back into Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or any of the new fantasy and sci-fi I'm pursuing. I want to draw, I want to write, I want to create new things. I pause videos to write down ideas for my own videos, ideas for drawings, ideas for storylines. I try to always keep as many tethers as I can to my passions, and I try to keep moving. Each of my major stories are really the impetus for all of my artwork. All of the robots that I'm working on daily and uploading to Instagram right now are not for Instagram purposes. The Instagram is almost more of an accountability thing for me. They all tie into a story called Amongst the Broken that I'm working on that's a whole bunch of robots buried underneath of Siberia. It's a funny, silly, riddled with pop culture story that just doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's kind of built in a way that it doesn't have to make sense. And it's got that beautiful surrealistic quality, which means that there are other things that have to make total sense, so that things that don't make sense aren't the entirety of it, because that would be overwhelming. Most of my art, the reason I work on drawing robots is because of that. All of the Inktober stuff, including the piece that you see in the background right now, which isn't Inktober, is all tied into Nethervoid, another story of mine that I'm working on. Almost all of the artwork that I work on at the end of the day, it's being fed into this massive machine, this engine to create my stories. This isn't going to be how every single one of you are built, but I think that if you really dissect it, if you analyze yourself and you come down to a very fundamental, almost like nucleic level, you will find that what you want to draw ties into some sort of dream, some sort of passion, some sort of thing that you want to focus on. If you stay adjacent to that, if you really love anime and most of your drawing is anime and you feel like you shouldn't do it because you need to focus on other things, make sure that you always have some tie to it. It allows you to stay excited, it allows you to stay in the thing, you keep making art, and it allows you to be a little bit more resilient when things get hard. Celebrate your wins. When you do have a success, make sure you acknowledge it. Share it with other people who have a track record of encouraging you, who will care and be excited for you. Unfortunately, this is often not family, but awesome for you if it is. Next, as a little side note, write it down. The feeling will fade and the next failure will all but erase the memory, so write it down. Store it somewhere on your desktop, in your notes on your phone, but put it somewhere so next time you feel terrible, you can dredge it up. This might feel a little old school. I know that I'm old, but this is something that is really, really important. I actually do this sometimes for other people in my life that I love, other people that need support sometimes and they're not very encouraging of themselves. I will try to keep notes of really successful days that they have or really good things that they have so that it sits somewhere. I do this for my wife. When she has a hard day at work, I have a list of things that I can bring up and be like, okay, but do you remember on this date, like this wonderful thing happened to you? This person wrote you a really encouraging note. Those kind of things are important because we are often much, much, much harder on ourselves and we forget our successes. So what you can do for yourself is you can write these down. And when you have a crappy day, when you have a crappy piece, when you just feel terrible, like you can't be an artist because of how awful your work is, you have something to go back and look at. Sometimes this could even be when you finish a piece, you could write down some notes about how happy you were that the shading turned out adequately, that the face turned out well. And, when you look at it later on, your skills have progressed, you're probably gonna be like, why was I so excited about that piece? But capturing that emotion, the feeling that you had when you finished it is super important. Celebrate your wins, focus on the good times and remember them, and then record them in some fashion so they're available to you on the tough days. Continue to look forward. Goals and dreams allow you to keep moving forward. There are many nights where I sit down to write, or mornings I get up to work on scripts and I just don't want to. But the reality is, if I don't make a video this week, no video comes out 2 weeks down the road when it's scheduled, or I have more work to do later. If I don't write the 1,000 words in my book, then there's another batch I have to write later. Each movement is a single step toward a goal or a dream, and often it's the only thing that keeps me moving, or gets me moving in the first place. I've talked a lot on this channel about goals and dreams. They're really important things, and I think they're more important for us as artists because, well, there's a couple of different reasons. I think one, artists are often driven by excitement and inspiration, which means that we dive into things headlong, probably more frequently than a lot of other people do. This also causes us to get overwhelmed because we have a tendency not to think about things quite as much as maybe we should before we dive into things. It's part of the reason why I have so many sketchbooks going at one time, even though I'm actively working to stop doing that. And I got similar results when I asked a lot of you whether you guys have just a single sketchbook going or many. And some of you had even more than me. Some of you had close to 10 or 15 sketchbooks going simultaneously. We as artists tend to start doing lots and lots of things, and we get excited and then our attention gets pulled elsewhere. So this is really one of the biggest reasons why I think that goals and dreams and written down schedules are very important for us as artists. If you'd like to look a little bit more at developing goals as an artist, take a look at the other video I have listed in the description. I've done a couple different videos on setting goals and building projects and things like that, so check those out. I won't belabor the point here. I will simply leave us on the fact that goals are very important for our continued progress. Mindset shifts in general are important, actually, but there are several strategies I want to cover that work. You can put in time to build a levee against the flood, and I would highly encourage all of you to do so when you are on a good and healthy headspace. So let's start off with this. Create strategies to deal with common struggles. This might be very literal for you. A checklist of things to do when creative blocks strike, a poem you need to read whenever you feel discouraged, or a list of positive comments you have received that you keep in a folder for just such occasions. We're each very different, and our struggles are thusly just as different. Think about what your individual struggles are, the things that grind your progress to a halt. Write those down. For each item on that list, work on creating a strategy for dealing with it. What do you do when you have no inspiration? When you are tired? When you've had a bad day at work? If you have no strategy, chances are you will avoid the work. You will avoid the art. But if you know that when you have had a bad day, you can just sit down and work on low-stress reference work, then chances are you will actually sit down and do some work. Here are some quick examples of this. For motivational issues, keep a written list of why you work, what excites you, and the purpose behind it. Review this frequently. If you have had a long-term art goal, include it here. Alternatively, this motivation issue might actually be an issue in poorly conceived goals. Make sure you have art goals that are written down, so they don't only exist in your mind, which becomes much harder to work from under poor circumstances. For inspiration issues, keep a Pinterest board, a collection of reference photos, a book of your favorite artist's work, or something similar on hand and easily accessible. When you don't know what to work on or are feeling uninspired, go to these and simply copy until you have something else that strikes your fancy. For mood issues, have a series of low stress or fun activities lined up. For many, this is copying things that they love. For others, it is resuming work on an already started piece. For me, it is usually drawing boxes or lightly shaded things. It doesn't really matter what it is. It's just something that gets you working and something that doesn't cause additional stress. Try building a support system. Seek to find, build, or foster a support system for yourself. Often, if done simply from selfish ambition, this will not get you very far. But if you are being supportive of others, the likelihood is that they will be supportive of you as well, specifically referring to artistic pursuits in this case. Here are some examples. If you are in classes, ask for more input from your teacher. Often teachers want to give more feedback than they get an opportunity to give, especially in college or upper division classes. Many students are hesitant to ask, and teachers can often delight in the ability to give more feedback. In addition, confide in students, ask for feedback, and be careful about giving yours until it is asked for specifically. Join a Discord community. In fact, ours should be up now, so look for a link to it in the description of the channel and on this video specifically. In addition though, there are several other artists who have good Discord communities, and there is no rule that says you can't join multiples. Kelsey Rodriguez's channel has a lovely Discord server, and she is pretty active on there, but the rest of the community is great as well. Discord communities can be a little volatile under some circumstances, but frankly, the couple art communities that I'm involved in seem to have no volatility, or the mods must do a really good job of taking care of it. Maintain artistic friendships. I did not know how valuable this would be, but it is incredibly valuable. If you have artistic friends, maintain those relationships. Only they will know what it is like. Only they will have true empathy and sympathy for your struggles. They don't even need to be artists as long as they are creators. I would say writers probably fit into this category as well. Take breaks. Strategic breaks are good for you. I am writing this script on January 29th, and I'm recording it on February 1st, and this video is set to go live in mid to late February. I plan this far out for a couple reasons. One is so I don't miss an upload due to illness or vacation, and the other is to plan breaks. I will be taking a whole week off of video production to focus on other creative and business concerns. This is a strategic move for me, one that allows me to split my attention in the ways that it can be best utilized. Here are some examples of this. Work ahead so that you can take a break, like I mentioned above. Set up vacations ahead of time, in work or from your artistic stuff. Take breaks from normal stuff to work on your artwork and creative journey. Imagine taking a PTO day from work just to stay home and draw or paint. What a delightful idea. Practice self-care. I have a whole video on this, so I won't spend a lot of time here. You are a human, you are valuable, and you need to take care of yourself. For more on that, please see the other podcast. It is long and goes over many individual strategies and their importance. Seek feedback on your work. This ties into community, and as such, I will not give examples, but feedback is important. Seeking critique can help you to prevent stagnation. Often, the little pulls and tugs of another person's comments can give you some impetus or even freedom to make changes you otherwise would not make. Sometimes these are things you wanted to do but were scared to try, and sometimes they are things that would just never have occurred to you before. Resilience is essential for artists. The journey is long, and there are many potential hangups along the way. This is a little bit shorter podcast than normal, but this is really specific, and it's kind of a hard topic to talk about. So in lieu of that, if you have any additional tips, any comments, any further advice, please leave that in the comments below. If there's enough of it, or if there's enough of a need or desire, I will make another video on this topic as well. I wanted to get this one out. It was voted on pretty well by the community, but also it's an important thing. Art is hard, and maybe I'm just being insular here, but I feel like artists tend to need resilience a little bit more than some other people do. Maybe that's not the case, but I'm involved in a lot of artistic communities, and I've spent most of my professional life around artists. In fact, I've spent most of my life around artists, the more that I think about it. But I hope that this video was able to shed some light on your path and to give you a couple strategies that might be helpful. As always, thank you for your time. I appreciate all the comments, all the feedback, and all of your time invested into the watching and listening to of these videos and podcasts. Have a good one, y'all. See you soon.